Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Conversations with Anasa. We're so happy to be with you today. So let's start with meditation. Take your attention inside. And breathe down below your belly button. So you feel, we know that anatomically your air can't really get to the abdomen. But at the same time, because of the permeability of all our cells, it can. And so it's important that energetically we focus on that center to bring our attention downward and out of our heads. So take a deep breath, call in the white light from above, and bring it down below your belly button. And you can keep it going, coming out your feet and going down into the earth, just running white light through your entire system and out around your body at least 4 inches. And you just run this white light through your system and invite yourself to let go of any disharmony throughout any part of your system, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, things you can see, things you can't see, things you are aware of, things you're not aware of. Just let it all go so this white light of divine love can purify us. Just imagine, another word you could use is any toxicity, anything that doesn't serve the highest you want to just let go of in this moment. And now you ask, everything that's not mine, please go. And now you feel into the energy center below your belly button. And as you breathe, feel for the space between the breaths. And hold your attention there, below your belly button. And just allow your breath to be however it wants to be. Focusing on that space. And just allow. And you may feel your attention naturally pulling downward to the tailbone. If not, it's fine to stay below your belly button as long as you want. This is you learning yourself in this moment. Because this moment only happens once. And now take your attention to the center of the earth, grounding in the white light, which is you and around you. So that white light is bringing a calmness, interacting with the calmness that already exists in Mother Earth. Aligning our center with her center. Understanding that our life is inextricably interwoven with the life of the earth. It is we who have misunderstood our relationship to her. And so we say a prayer for harmony within ourselves with Mother Moon and Mother Earth. And Father Sun and Father Sky. And we understand as we embrace these energies that we are all emanations of both. And that in labeling gender, we are not relating to inequality in any way. We are acknowledging the power of the energies that power us. When you're ready, allow your attention to rise up to your heart. With gratitude for the experience of inner union with your own power source. When you're ready, allow your attention to come up to your throat. Allow your attention to rise up and out the top of your head. Again, feel for the space between the breaths. When you're ready, gently and slowly open your eyes as you hold your attention deep inside. So we welcome you. How may we serve today? How did it land last week, the idea of sitting in contradiction. Or anything else you'd like to talk about. Yes.
Good morning. I've been working on forgiveness lately, beginning with forgiving myself. And I really can't, how do I, I don't know that I'm making any progress. I just don't know what to look for to feel that forgiveness is moving along.
Well, the first thing is to any being in your life, doesn't matter, any living being that you have loved can be human, non-human, animal. Anytime you have felt that connection with love itself, any experience in your past, we all have them. We all have lots of them, actually. When we can't access love, it feels like we've never experienced it, always. And it feels like that's been the only thing we've ever experienced is this lack of love. And the truth is, we have a puppy that is just love. It's there you go. There it is. And you have tons of experiences like that. And so the thing to do when you're having trouble forgiving yourself is to take any one of those experiences that comes to your mind and consciously remember at least one so that you always have it as a go-to. And another thing that you can do that we've done in the past and instructed others to do is to have a stuffed animal that represents that love. And every time you hug that stuffed animal, you are hugging yourself. So you pick a stuffed animal that sort of represents you in a humorous way, if this feels right to you. And every time you, like when you wake up, you hug that animal, that stuffed animal. Before you go to sleep, you love that. And it becomes a symbol for reaching for that inside yourself, because we need to create an external memory so that we can have it whenever we want it. And it's temporary. It's like training wheels to be able to get it in this moment, because we all go through this we go through experiences that separate us because they're so strong that the negativity seems like the only thing that exists in life. That happens to most of us daily. And so we need a way to reestablish our internal connection in this moment, because always there is only this moment. And our life is a series of this moments going by. And we don't really recognize it because it's always happening. And the things that are always happening, we take for granted and we don't even notice because they're in the background. We only notice if they change. And then it's like, oh my God, change. And So, but if we have some reference point, you know, like even a picture of some experience where there was love, doesn't matter what the living being is. It can be a tree, it can be a flower, it can be anything that has brought that feeling to you. And then once you have embraced that, you you make it throughout your body. You just expand it. So you become that. And the practice is to, however we can remind ourselves of that feeling, let's hold the feeling. And so it can be a puppy or a cat or a goldfish or a tree or, for me, sometimes it's just water. If I get in water, I feel this, expansion. But that's for me. It's different for every person. And you may have two or three things that you can just go to in a moment to remind yourself, oh, yes, this is how, and then you expand it in yourself. And the thing to always remember is that it's not complicated. It's not. It's simple. It's that we forget to do it. And so, a note on the refrigerator, that's a code for you. That whatever it is that makes that feeling rise up. And sometimes, this happens to Rebecca a lot, the darkness comes and it's so familiar that we want to rest in it just because it's familiar. And so we resist. And we're not saying this personally to you. We're saying that we all do this, that we will resist reaching for the light because the dark is so familiar and the light feels like so much work. And then we get there and we're like, wait, we had it backwards. But we have to get there to realize and then remind ourselves when we're there that, yes, this is the point. And that other thing is, false evidence appearing real.
So it sounds like it's getting in touch with self-love.
Exactly. It's
And
getting
that
in touch with
brings
love.
forgiveness.
Well, it's getting in touch with love itself. We'll just say love, because there is no differentiation in the field of love. It is completely inclusive. The thing is that when we're in it, we always attribute some external thing to making that happen in us. And so we get dependent on that external thing. But if we realize that we have a choice and find our own, we're very familiar with our triggers that make us go down. We're not so familiar with the triggers that make us go up. And so what we're talking about is establishing triggers to go up.
Okay.
Because
Gotcha.
they're just as powerful as the ones that make us go down. We just have to identify one or two so that when we are feeling we would say the way Rebecca experiences it often is unsupported is the word that comes for her. There are different words for everybody. Very often a word is betrayal or some fundamental way in which somebody did bad to us. That is a theme. And whenever we feel that, if we can make that a trigger to reach for love itself, not love in the future, but some trigger that makes us experience love itself, then the idea of forgiveness becomes irrelevant. Because if you're in this moment in love, there is nothing to forgive.
So it's creating a new habit.
Exactly. And you know how long it takes to create a new habit?
2 weeks.
21 days.
3 weeks.
21 days. Every day, if you repeat something for 21 days, you will have to consciously skip days to lose it. And we all do it. We get distracted. It's fine. There is no failing in this. We just do it until we do it enough that we become it.
I like to complicate things.
We all do. We all do. This is, yeah, this is the reason we say if it's not simple, it's not spiritual, because it is the tendency to make spirituality into this, complex university degree program that takes decades. And that's not what it is. It's opening our hearts in this moment, and in this moment, and in this moment. And the open heart is choiceless. It just is. The reason we say choiceless is because once you are in the field, once you are in the field of love itself, there are no other choices to be made because you are there. In that space between the breaths. And the doorway is the open heart. And so forgiveness just adds an extra step. That's not necessary. Remember, whenever we bring anything to words, we are creating limitation, which doesn't mean that words are not helpful. It's the only way we can communicate. But the reality that we're talking about, that humanity must come to and will, and we're part of that. The reality that we're talking about is love itself, where we train ourselves that every decision we make, we try to make in the highest best interest of the whole. It's a tall order. At the same time, it puts us in a kind of alignment with ourselves that allows us to have a different perspective. Instead of being dominated by the search for pleasure and the avoidance of pain, we are captivated by a different kind of experience that can take us beyond pleasure and pain and into our source experience. And in that place, Nothing is needed because completion itself is there. And we've all experienced it. And it's so simple that we run through it like running into a room and running out of it. And sometimes we don't even notice we've been there. But more and more as we practice, we become gradually more experienced and less afraid of accessing that place. And we're using fear because it's so common that parents train their children to be present in this reality as though it's the only one there is. And it's because they want us to survive well in our culture and be productive members of society and all of that. And most of us are in this stage where we're unwinding that, and we want to be more and more established in that which is real, which is inside ourselves, which is the source of our being. Does that make any sense?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Mm. And the truth is, when you love yourself, there is no longer any need to forgive anyone, because you understand that that love is the important thing, and that the experiences that you had that were hard are the things that actually pointed you and gave you the courage to search for something else. People who are not beat up by life don't generally get interested in spirituality or stay interested for a long time, because they're having too good a time. Why would they look for something else? Everything else is working. And you know, when that happens for people, that's called the God realm, that, you know, things just naturally, but it, you know, ignorance is bliss. That's what that really means. So our great fortune is that we don't want to settle for less, because we all understand, we've done pleasure enough to know that it's always temporary and sort of a false promise. And sometimes it, you know, we end up stranded somewhere because of it, you know, and very kind of isolated. And we know that pain, it's a choice, and it's not something that we can avoid in the search for what's real. And if we go toward it, it's where the word breakthrough comes. When you break through the pain to the love, that's what that word means, breakthrough. Breaking through the third dimensional reality of judgment and limitation and restriction, pain, pleasure. And it's not that those things don't exist anymore, but we have a different point of reference. In heart-centered awareness, our attention is actually in the center of our chest. And the thoughts come down and are filtered in the center of our chest. And we behave differently. what we're showing Rebecca is how do we say this? Well, in her childhood, she had the experience of death of the open heart. The way it just came to her is death of the open heart by 1,000 cuts from those who were supposed to love her. So in feeling that and allowing that, it's like it's like a round, it looks almost like a moon, like a very vulnerable, loving, white orb in her chest that was repeatedly stuck from the front and the back and the sides, like any vulnerable place, like tiny daggers. And allowing that experience to come fully present. In total acceptance. And who knows why these people who raised her were so tormented. And in a way, that's beyond our pay grade to sort. It's not important. What's important is the recognition that this is in some way very relevant to all of us, because it is this damage done before we had any concept of free will, let alone, we were just open feeling beings, completely vulnerable. All children are, depending on their womb experience, but all beings, all human beings are vulnerable when they first connect, and they are completely connected because there's no separation. And so that wounding happens because this is third dimensional reality. So it happens to all of us. There's first the great forgetting that we're completely spiritual beings. And then there's all this pain. That's not the only thing we experience, but it tends to be the thing that closes us down the most. I am never going to feel that again. We're locked. When we breathe into that, say, okay, maybe I have to feel that so that I can go to love. Maybe that's where the doorway is. And then we take our trigger to love and we embrace it completely. And we breathe into that. And the daggers don't disappear. And the pain comes and goes. But we understand, first of all, that we want to heal ourselves so that we don't do that to another person. because when we have not healed, what we have not healed in ourselves is how we treat ourselves is how we treat everybody else. That's the truth of it. We see the world the way we are. So how we treat ourselves is how we treat everybody else, every other living being. Understanding that and feeling our own pain, we would never want to inflict that on another person. This is the heart of forgiveness. Understanding that our natural reaction to our pain is that we never want to do that to anyone else because we know what it feels like. So that's our natural first decision. We've all made that decision numerous times about our feelings. Feelings are valuable because they show us where we've decided to limit ourselves. They show us the places where we feel unworthy of love. When we're screaming at somebody who did something to us, we are screaming at that part of ourselves that has yet to be healed. And is acting out the way we were treated. As though there's some validity to that punishment. Usually it has to do with very often punishment for things that we don't even have knowledge of. And, you know, human beings can be very complicated. And when they're unworked, they do all kinds of weird things to each other. And the motives are endless. The only place where we have choice is inside ourselves. We would extend the golden rule, do unto others as we would have done to ourselves. Do not do unto others as has been done to us. That's the essence of forgiveness. Is understanding that what was done to us was done out of ignorance. Most people are trying to do the best they can. It's really the outliers that, you know, intentionally harm. We tend to act out our pain and frustration on those that we say that we love because they're the closest. And why is usually an unanswerable question. It gets so complicated so fast that we could spend decades there and not get anywhere. It's not a helpful question. What can sometimes be helpful in getting over it, recognizing it, learning to use it as fuel for our continued growth. This is what pain is. And it's a great gift to see your pain. Forgiveness is saying, I will never do that to anyone. And then, watching yourself do it in small ways or big ways, and coming back to the love. Understand that it's practice. This is what practice is. And anything that we practice involves a series of failures to get to perfection. So that's the second thing to understand about forgiveness, is that failure is built into the system when we try to do better. And so punishing ourselves the way we were punished is in a way perpetuating the sorry state of affairs. Teaching ourselves to cultivate love is the highest spiritual practice there is from our perspective. And we cannot possibly cultivate love outside of us if we don't feel it inside of us. This life is an incredible gift in that it gives us the opportunity to experience love as our home base in ourselves. In allowing ourselves to feel the intensity of our pain, we are freeing ourselves from being in constant reaction to it, because allowing the feeling allows the white light to penetrate. And then as we hold to that, it begins to loosen that bowling ball in the center of our chest. That's what Rebecca was feeling a few minutes ago. And what happens is it starts to melt. It was black, the color of what she has on today. This black, closed bowling ball gets softer. And it starts to have some pulsation to it as the life comes back. And the understanding that every one of those daggers can be transformed into love, which heals everything. Love heals all. And that healing and transformation can take as long as we want. We have a choice. We can feel miserable for as long as we want to. That's one choice. But we can decide, okay, this really hurts, but I'm just going to breathe into it. Let it hurt. And see where that goes. And it starts to come alive. And the more it lives in you, the more you want to cultivate that. Because it's the seed of what my teacher used to say, magic, mystery, and miracle, all in one place. We are showing you Rebecca's journey because it's not that different. We all have different flavors of it, different, ways we experienced it. But it's the human childhood. Not everybody's is that intense, and some people's are much more intense. The capacity to be with whatever hand you were dealt is built into the system when you turn your attention toward it. You already lived through it once. That's the guarantee that, this is just the releasing of the not just, this is the releasing of the pattern that was instilled. It's very fortunate that we lived through it because now we have the opportunity to release it, to release ourselves. And you understand that that release within ourselves naturally frees everybody connected to it. So forgiveness is not the right word for that. Transcendent is the word for that, because when it's released, you no longer hold to that pattern. Everybody's free. This is why they say when you do your work, 3 generations in each direction benefit. everybody's released. You're not holding them to that pattern anymore. They have a new series of choices that they can confront. Our work has power. It's not going to make us famous, because it's not about the external world. May make some people famous because it's in their cards. But from our perspective, it may be a great gift to have an ordinary life and the time to go inward. Hmm. Didn't expect that to come up today. Mm. We welcome your questions or experiences, anything. Yes.
So during the week, I give some attention to possibly formulating what the question is, what the current question is. And it usually leads me on a very interesting journey. But recently, what I've noticed is that if I come to a question and I actually can formulate it, my internalized Anasa or Rebecca comes up with the answer, or at least the way to go. And this week's question was about what's the most important thing a human can do on the planet. And of course, the answer was love more. And that's what this whole session has been about, elucidating what that means. I'm loving the word love is overused for whatever, and finding the truth of that within myself is, of course, the work. Expanding that, including more and more, because it's not easy to include some of the things that I've encountered in the love. It's actually quite an effort sometimes. It's not like ooh effort. It's more like put your attention there and go deeper. And anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge that once again. Thank you all.
Mm. So grateful for your feedback. Yes, this is, you're right on. And you're right about the word love, but we're still using it because when you understand that the entire experience is beyond three-dimensional language, then, but three-dimensional language is the only way we have to communicate. We were going to say with certainty, but the thing is that three-dimensional language within itself is a limitation. There is nothing in three-dimensional language that can do anything but point beyond it, but it can't really, because in three-dimensional language, it is inherently, every time we put a word on some inner experience, there's no such thing really. I mean, never mind, we're getting too complicated too fast. Whenever we put a label on something, we have surrounded it with a concept that we share, we hope. We never know that the red I see is the same red you see. We have no way of confirming that. But what we call red, we sort of share that experience, we think. At least we, and so that's how we communicate. But it's all based on this limitation that allows us to formulate that we're seeing the same thing. And so we identify a color consistently as red. And all of language and words have that in common. They immediately surround the energy of what the experience is and limit it. And this is perhaps why love has so many dimensions to it in our language, because in using that one word, we realize that that word doesn't cut it. And so in an attempt to understand that, we might just discover this and begin to beyond their dimensional reality is experience, not words. And so we just feel into the space between the breaths. And it's not one experience, it's multifaceted. It's beyond the beyond. And in allowing it to be, we are allowing it to teach us what we are.
One of the gifts that our parents, mostly our father, gave us as children was a way to respond to challenges or scary situations or painful situations with the phrase, God is love. And it was this kind of an automatic thing, you'd stub your toe and you'd say, God is love. And as I grew up, I realized there was something to that more than just God bless you or after you sneeze or something. It wasn't just a phrase, a useless phrase. It was pointing at something that God is love. Okay, so then that brings up what is God and all that stuff. So it's been a lifelong exploration of that. And I mean, it continues for sure, because there's always more, as you say. Um, More to see, more to feel, more to open to. Anyway, I just wanted to also acknowledge our dad, who died when we were quite young, preteen, um, but left us with that legacy.
What a sweet man. We are feeling into that. What was his first name?
Charles, but everyone called him Chick. Um, he was a sweet man, he was a brilliant man, and many other things. He was a strict man.
We see a fair number of boxes around him, around his image.
Boxes?
How do we say this? Oh, when you said strict, they suddenly appeared. He had there was not a lot of play in his outlook. By play, we mean entertaining different ideas.
I would say he just, as my sister once put it, wanted us to be perfect children. And what you said earlier about getting punished for things that you didn't understand why, which is absolutely useless. If you punish a child and they have no idea why. And so that's what I meant by strict. It was like there was a lot of times unspoken regulations, and and my sister acknowledged that he was just doing his best to make us perfect. Yeah. Of course, that's impossible, but that was
Did a great job.
Yes, and this is what we mean. Most parents, above 98% are doing their best. They're doing their absolute best.
I know that to be true as a parent myself.
Yes, yes, and tearing their hair out to do better. I mean, there's some who regard the whole thing as obligation, and that's also, that means they take all the joy out of it for themselves and everybody else. But most people are trying to do the best they can.
And there was a lot of joy and a lot of humor. I have to add that.
Oh, that's great.
He was hysterical. He made us blow milk out of our nose at the dinner table. It was so funny.
That's great. That is great. That is great. And one thing that we know for sure is that it's possible for us to heal all of it. It's possible for us to heal all of it. And that's what happens when we have these moments of connection. We are in the experience of being healed. And one moment of that experience is enough to keep us interested for the rest of our lives, because that experience has so much potency to it. We celebrate the humor that you grew up with. That's remarkable and wonderful.
Thank you. So do we.
See.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I got a postcard from God the other day, and I wanted some help in deciphering it. I stepped out onto my back deck to go to the garage refrigerator, something I do a dozen times a week, and suddenly it was a beautiful morning. It was as if my volume knob got turned up to 10 all of a sudden, and everything became real. And I realized that, well, I remember what my mind said as it went over. It said, "Oh my God, this is all real," as if it was a shock, as if I haven't been living in reality all my life, and I haven't. It's like my volume knob was turned up to 10 all of a sudden, and it stayed there for I don't know how long, and then I went to the refrigerator and got what I was getting. But for the following week or two, I've been looking at my life and realizing that my volume knob is turned down to 2. I get the mail, I pay the bills, I watch TV, I live with my wife, who I barely see sometimes, and I'm living most of my life down at 2. And the postcard said, "Having a wonderful time. Wish you were here."
Well, sounds like you deciphered it. That's the meaning. Oh, we lost your volume.
I've been working on it since then. It's sort of a touchstone. And then I realized, at a given moment, I can check and am I really here? Well, yeah, kind of, but kind of not. It's been very interesting.
Yes, but to realize that you have a choice. You control that volume knob. You have a choice in every moment to turn it up or down. And the truth is, we can't sustain having it up all the time. It's too much input.
Yeah, I don't know if I could live like that, but I really would like to try, at least
Yes.
what a wonderful taste. And the message, wish you were here.
Yes. Well, we're not going to say anything about the sustained experience of that, because what you were given is a view of what's possible. And we'll just leave it at that, because anything else that we say is going to imply some kind of judgment. And it's not an experience that needs judgment. It's an experience that needs this more and more and more, and just allowing yourself to be in the moment. What's in this moment? And you breathe, you just took a breath and you expanded, you opened to reality. Yes, absolutely, yes. All thumbs. Yes. And all we can say about cultivating that experience is to look for the way up. In every moment, look for the way up. What is the highest best in this moment? And then start with a deep breath and a big hug to love itself. And there you go. We're so grateful. Oh my goodness, how did we do this? Not paying attention to time. That's become a trademark in my life. Time isn't real, and it disappears when you're having fun. So let's meditate for a few minutes and enjoy totally. Thank you so much. It's so beautiful being with you. We are so grateful for your presence and this opportunity to share. So much love. Bye for now.